Well, on Tuesday, the Irish police dropped their investigation into claims Stephen Fry made blasphemous remarks on a television show 2 years ago. Fry asked why he should respect a capricious, mean-minded and stupid God who creates a world full of injustice. People have said much worse on this programme over the past decade. But in Jakarta, Indonesia, blasphemy has landed the Christian governor in prison after he suggested some imams had misused Quranic verses to discriminate against Christian candidates in the elections. It's not just blasphemy. These days, some students want trigger warnings. If a law lecturer plans to discuss a rape case, or a literature professor wants to analyse a gruesome play, something like Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus, woe betide you if someone insists they're neither male nor female, and then you call them miss, big rows ensue. Do we have a right not to be offended? It's Dawn. What's all this? Eh? What's all this? I mean, when I was at university, when I was at university a wee while ago, I didn't want safe space. I wanted dangerous spaces. I wanted challenges. We debated with communists, with fascists, with thisists. We didn't have Islamists in those days, but
I'm sure you did.
I joke, but not at Aberdeen University. But you know, we loved all that stuff. We relished all that stuff. What's the problem?
I think the problem is that we always focus on the most extreme examples. When I left university in 2010, and we had a big debate while I was there about whether or not to remove the no platform policy for the BNP. And the debate there was about the fact that we were a membership organisation, the Students' Union, and a lot of the Jewish, Muslim students, you know, a lot of the Black and Asian students said that if fascists were invited into their membership organisation, they wouldn't feel safe. So I think when it comes to free speech, I think we have to, you know, we have to look at the fact that everybody should be free to express their political opinions up to a point where it discriminates against other people.
But you've got, hang on, it's people like Peter Tatchell and Germaine Greer and Julia Bendel who are no platform, people who fought all their life for the rights of others. And because they've said something that some find unacceptable, all of a sudden they're no platform. These great human rights campaigners. And Douglas Carswell from UKIP is banned from one university. He was an elected, you know, representative. And there doesn't seem to be, when you've got Peter Tatchell and Germaine Greer no platform, yet you've got Islamists, some of whom have just poisonous views, who are not no platform. There is not a level playing field here. It makes no sense.
I think that again, a lot of the issues here are conflating not being invited to a specific debate and no platforming.
And trigger warnings.
Yeah,
well,
I mean, I wouldn't personally, you know, no platform Peter Tatchell, etc., or Douglas Carswell, but I think there is an argument against, you know, some very extreme Islamists, against some very extreme fascists, etc. I think you have to look at whether or not people feel safe in their organisations, in their, you know, in their private spaces. I think everybody should have a right to be heard in, you know, in public spaces. So, for instance, we were discussing Nick Griffin at university. So, you know, so Nick Griffin not being invited to the University of Warwick campus didn't stop Nick Griffin from standing on the street and espousing any views he wanted. So I think we have to look at, you know, for instance.
But when he was on Question Time, he made a fool of himself because he was tested.
He did, but it could have entirely gone the other way, and he could have, you know, roused support.
Well, so. Yeah, but one journalist said we were expecting Oswald Mosley, and we got David Brent. and there was Matthew Norman. Well, so. What about, Adam, is it a case of trusting people here? Because you can understand Dawn's argument there. If someone's maybe left home for the first time, they're in a university environment, it might stifle their confidence in expressing their opinions because they've got somebody so unpleasant there.
So I exactly agree with your lead into this topic, that university should be a dangerous space. University in the press is often described as a home from home. You hear universities themselves come out and make those points. It's not the comfy home surrounding, it's a dangerous place where your ideas should be tested. I mean, the problem is, within this debate, everybody claims to support free speech, but they say, I support free speech, but this is the exception.
Well, where's your but?
There is no but. Free speech has to be an absolute, which means that you often find yourself defending people who you disagree with entirely.
What about a Holocaust denier?
A Holocaust denier. Well, because if you silence people, you lose the opportunity to defeat these ideas. You lose the opportunity to engage with them and predictably put them down, which is a really important thing for society more broadly. As political actors, as citizens, we should be debating and discussing things in order to build a better future for everyone.
Well,
that's the point of free speech.
Yeah, we've had, on this show, we've had in the past a list here of, we've had the BNP on. When they had elected representatives, we have had Anjem Chowdhury on, all manner of Islamists, Tommy Robinson when he was head of the EDL. And people do complain, but we would argue it was in context, that, and there was a proper reason for it. Any thoughts in the audience? I'll come to you in a minute, Angela. Guy there in the grey shirt. Yeah, hi.
Your right to not be offended begins and ends with your right to not listen to someone. You can't stop someone else's mouth, only your own ears. And if someone's going to be deciding for you what you can and can't say, there's no one who's equipped to deal with that job for myself better than myself. So you got to think for yourself.
Stephen, a blog, does anything go, do you think, when it comes to free speech?
I believe so. I suppose the lines direct incitement to violence, which is it's also a tricky area as well. How do you classify incitement? It's kind of treating the public as infants. They can, they can be incited into committing violence at the mere instruction. But the idea of offence is a tricky one in general. I mean, we've all heard the expression, it's taken, not given. And that's because it's entirely subjective. What I find deeply offensive may not even faze the next person. And vice versa. So where do you draw the line, and who do you trust to draw it for you? And given what I hear people get offended by, I trust nobody to draw that line. But I mean, it's important to know the role.
Who needs a safe space?
I think possibly a group that may have a good shout for this is ex-Muslims. For instance, they're ostracised by the larger community. It can be a great risk to their personhood if they come out against Islam vocally. So I speak to a lot of ex-Muslim groups, and they do a lot of heavy vetting.
He's not happy. The guy behind you is not happy at all.
Very quickly, I work at university.
What about ex-Muslim?
No, because actually at the university I work for, an ex-Muslim group came onto the campus, and I asked to sit in and observe it. So this is nonsense.
What's nonsense?
That ex-Muslims are somehow scared. And the idea that it's not Muslims. Muslims are the most attacked people in the press by everyone. You can't open a newspaper, turn the television on, without Muslims being attacked. I've heard in the last 5 minutes the word Islamism used by nearly everyone who's spoken so far. I want to know who the Islamist people are you're talking about. That's offensive to me. But I have to take it. I have to sit here and take it.
If you're an Islamist who thinks
Me?
it has... No, if one is an Islamist and you have those certain views on homosexuals, for example, if you're LGBT, you might find that very offensive. But isn't it better to debate that Islamist, if I may use that term?
And I'm all for free speech. I've had to sit and listen to many anti-Muslim comments, and you have to just sit there and swallow it. But there's a line.
Not all, but some Muslims make anti-LGBT comments.
Okay, and in religion...
Stephen, do you want to come back on this?
Yeah, I mean, you made a point about Muslims having to put up with sort of anti-Muslim abuse and things like that. Ex-Muslims have to put up with that as well, because the same misconceptions about you based on skin colour or your Arabic-sounding name or whatever, that's projected onto ex-Muslims as well. And then they have the added ostracisation from their own communities on top of that. So it's a minority within a minority.
Angela, would you sit on a platform with a Holocaust denier?
Sorry, can I hang on? Absolutely not.
Would you, Naomi?
I want to say, as a second generation, both my parents are survivors. My father over 4.5 years in 7 different camps, including concentration camps, and my mother questioned at gunpoint by the Gestapo, aged 10, that I cannot tolerate the term Holocaust denier, because Holocaust happened. So I feel that's not open to debate. You can't debate, has it happened or not? It was there. It's one example.
Well, it's the same about young Earth creationism or flat earthers. I mean, there's a whole list
it's not the same as flat Earth, because it happened in 1939 to 1945. But you cannot deny. Excuse me. You cannot deny facts. I feel really
absolutely
strongly.
right.
And therefore, in that sense, there is no debate. And as far as debate goes, I feel I'd like to say I'm open to free speech, with a limit of there is a limit, hurting, but when you offend or hurt or racism, where do you stop? And then it becomes no longer debate when you hurt others, and it's no longer a discussion.
So I don't think individual psychology and emotional harm should trump bigger principles which make up the foundation of this society. And even though it's not an aim of mine to go out and offend people, I don't think it's good to pointlessly offend people. And I think in many ways this debate has become a bit toxic with...
What, this debate?
No, the broader free speech debate.
I know what you mean, the general debate.
Yeah, with
like name-calling.
With free speechers calling no platformers snowflakes and the other side being quite aggressive, calling people all the isms, the racism, the sexism, which I don't think is productive for anyone. I think what we need to understand is that free speech is our vehicle to enable us to progress as a society. And it's also the bedrock of all other freedoms. So all freedoms stem from free speech.
As an Ahmadiyya Muslim, the bedrock of our society, we've made a lot of progress because of free speech, kicking against clerical power and authoritarian power and getting to where we are, the freedom to say what we want, and that much cherished and important freedom, the freedom to ridicule, which is a very British thing, a very European thing, and people who are against it, some feel that's something of a cultural imposition. But the Ahmadiyya community has suffered greatly from other Muslim communities and the way that you feel that you have been slandered.
Indeed. I mean, look, the Ahmadiyya community has suffered as a result of blasphemy laws, and we might come to that as the conversation progresses. But free speech
in other countries, in Pakistan.
Free speech is absolutely...
He's shaking his head again, that fellow there. But anyway, carry on. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Free speech is absolutely an important right. It's a fundamental right. It's a right that should be protected. But of course, with every right comes some level of responsibility. That's not something that I make up. We see that everywhere. On this programme today, you wouldn't be able to use abusive language or show nudity because, you know, we have norms and rules that protect against that. Even the UK Human Rights Act.
We might after 10 o'clock.
Maybe after 10 o'clock.
I don't mean 10 o'clock this morning.
But not now, because it isn't appropriate now. Even the UK Human Rights Act, which is passed by our Parliament, by our democratically elected leaders, talks about freedom of expression in Article 10, but it talks about it in the context of morality. It talks about it in the context of responsibility. So it's important, it's absolutely important that we protect the right of free speech, but we do that in a way that doesn't impose upon minorities, impose upon the weak, because the measure of our democracy, the measure of our democracy and the measure of our freedom is not how much we're able to insult each
what
other.
Exactly do... Yeah, but we have a right... You know, Christopher Hitchens famously said, if somebody said, I find that offensive, his next question is, and your point is. Where do we draw the line, Stephen? I mean, simply inciting hatred.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, you identify as an Ahmadi Muslim, which is a largely peaceful sect, happily, but it's also one of the most persecuted within the Muslim community, largely because a significant portion of Muslims find your proclamations about Islam to be either untrue or outright offensive, and they use
Glasgow shopkeeper, of course.
Yeah, Asad Shah in Glasgow, and very tragically killed by a fellow Muslim because of his beliefs and proclamations about the faith. But I think once you sort of justify this offence culture, you provide these people with the rhetorical tools and justifications to take matters into their own hand in this way.
No, well, look, I mean, you're not in a position... What we're not saying is that you can't have free debate and can't have free discussion. It's absolutely important that you are able to challenge what I believe, you know, or what a Jew believes, or what a Hindu believes, or what a Christian believes, and I defend that right. I defend the right that everybody should be able to say what they want to say in order to get to the truth. But when you start to use free speech in order to ridicule and to insult and to hurt and to harm without purpose, that does not benefit society. Look, I'm born in a century in which I'm born in a century.
Whose truth?
This
is the
century where there was genocide.
We glory in ridicule in this country. One at a time. Angela's been trying to come in.
Yeah,
Angela.
I have. Sorry. This time you haven't
Sorry,
to jump
Angela,
in advance.
You've been jumping up and down in your chair. And
yes, I know.
You said earlier on that absolutely you would not sit
not.
with a Holocaust denier, if I can use that term.
Yeah, she very eloquently made the point that I was going to make, so that I won't repeat it about the fact that you're disputing fact and setting aside that it's humongously offensive to Jewish people or anybody who believes that there shouldn't be...
To humanity.
To humanity. This was, you know, the bleakest moment in the annals of human history. But the problem is, what we haven't touched upon in this debate, is that there is a default position in society now. We have this generation outrage, and the moral high ground is so overcrowded with people who are sort of ready to take offence if they don't agree with you. We've got obviously social restraints about things like incitement to racial hatred, xenophobia, sexual objectification of women, very serious issues. But if I say chairman instead of chairperson, somebody leaps down my throat. I mean, we need to man up or woman up if you're offended by that.
Trivialising it a bit, isn't it?
No, I'm not trivialising it, because the issue has become trivialised by those who object to the fact that the idea that a wolf whistle, for example, is somehow offensive to me. I wish I got more wolf whistles, by the way. That's quite different to somebody...
Dawn doesn't like that.
That's
it's
quite
great. I can see all the expressions on everybody's faces from here. Dawn, come in. Stephen, in a second.
I think I find it very, very funny that somebody says that we have social restraints that stop, objectification of women and xenophobia, and they write for the Daily Mail.
I absolutely loathe that argument. I loathe that argument. It is a cheap, get out of jail card.
It's true.
It may be. But what you're doing is you absolutely denude the strength of your argument by saying, well, I'll bash her over the head with one of the newspapers that you write for, because that way I don't have to take social responsibility for anything else I say. I'm entitled as an individual to have my point of view. And my point of view is deeply offended by racial hatred, incitement to racism, xenophobia, sexual objectification of women. No, I'm not hypocritical. You're hypocritical for denying me the power of free speech on a national television programme.
I can hear you speak.
What you're saying is you are sliding into censorship. You are sliding into a
you can hear
situation
each
of
other
censorship.
speaking. I can't hear myself thinking. Stephen, this is the point that Khalil raised here. Whose truth is it anyway?
Exactly, and I mean, people have truth that they try and base in science, for instance. Some people take it on faith, and there's all these multiple truths. Well, I class a lot of them as untruths myself. And how do you compete for space in that way if you give power to more power to one than the other? It's my opinion that there is no ultimate truth, and we should be open to challenge any sacred cow, no matter how many people hold it and how much it might hurt their feelings if you do challenge it.
And what about Holocaust denial? Is something as ridiculous as that, or a kind of... there are other examples.
I sympathise with, not with Holocaust deniers, the people who find it offensive. The right to be offended. My only concern is Holocaust denial is fairly sinister in the fact that it's conspiratorial in nature. And if you tell people you can't say that, you push it underground, and you don't get to know where these people are, and you can't challenge it.
But it's denying a reality, something that happened.
So is most religions, but we can't be finding
people would argue that religion is denying a reality as well. So then we have,
everything is about context.
You clapped.
Well, it is.
I'm going to clap your jacket, Guy. I think that's terrific.
I know.
Yeah. So, go on.
Well, I think a religion is, of course, based on faith, and we're going to come to that in a minute.
Are you saying the Holocaust is based on faith?
No, don't worry, Naomi. We're on to...
And faith is not something that can be proved. That is, faith in God is not something that can be proved, and therefore it's a denial of reality in that sense. It's an idea. It's a man-made, and it is man-made idea.
But that's a matter of opinion, isn't it?
It is.
So we can debate it.
Yeah, and we should debate it. It's important that we debate it. Look,
we should be able to say, look, Moses didn't exist, Abraham didn't exist, Adam didn't exist,
agree.
Muhammad existed, Jesus existed. We should be able to say that. Audience,
I agree.
Gentleman in the jacket there.
When you're talking about free speech, there's one argument, one bottom line you mustn't forget. In this country, and probably in many other countries in the world, people have died to preserve the right to free speech.
Have they died to preserve the right to gratuitously and hatefully insult someone?
I think when I say free speech, it covers a whole spectrum of things.
It does.
With free speech, with the responsibility, or with the right to free speech, comes the responsibility to use it sensibly.
Absolutely.
And when you get people denying...
Stephen, what is sensibly?
When you look at what's happening in the world...
I think free speech has got to cover everything from highbrow philosophy to gutter humour to insults to offence. It's got to cover the whole thing, or it doesn't cover anything, really.
It's back to my point that free speech has to be an absolute, because we've had loads of examples. We've had the extreme examples, and we've had the chairman, chairwoman thing.
The Ku Klux Klan or some awful white supremacist...
Because when you start taking away free speech away from one person, then you can take it away from anyone. But it's also, as an individual speaker, it's intellectually lazy to use to shut people up in order to win the argument. It's the old John Stuart Mill principle that how do you know your ideas are true if you never have them challenged? How do you come to terms?
So do you think it's a good way of testing and pushing and squeezing and going through the scientific test almost of your own ideas, so you come at the other side? And
it's not a good way. It's an
affirmation of what you believe. It's a good way to test what you believe. Yeah.
No, because if you just have beliefs which are never challenged, you never have to defend. You can never learn off your opposition and develop your ideas. Then you stay stagnant and you become intellectually lazy, and there's no progress. A lot of the people who censor free speech on universities call themselves progressives, but it's in the antithesis of being a progressive in my mind.
Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you for your contribution this morning. I know many of you are still raring to go. We have time. We do. You can join in all this morning's debates. Log on to bbc.co.uk/thebigquestions. Follow the link to the online discussion. Tweet using the hashtag BBCTBQ. Tell us what you think about our last big question too. Is death easier if you believe in God? And if you'd like to be in the audience at a future show, email audience@tbq@menton.tv. We're going to be in Peckham in South London on May the 28th for the final 2 programmes of this series. There'll be the usual live programme in the morning, and in the afternoon we're recording a special on genetic engineering.